All right, we are live. How are you doing today, Christina?
Good. Hi.
So, you played Sonic Mania yet?
Yeah, I've played Sonic Mania, although the only level I got up to was Stardust Speedway yesterday. That's the
Cool,
only level I got up to.
cool. So, I've been looking at all the, like, it was on July 22nd, 2016, at the Sonic 25th anniversary event in San Diego when Sonic Mania was first announced as the ultimate celebration of the past and the future. Finally, teaming up with indie developers, Sega was providing the authentic momentum based Sonic experience that kids from the 90s have been waiting for. And not only would it play like the 16-bit games of past decades, it even looked like it.
Sega even produced a comically absurd Mega Drive Genesis commercial for the game as well. Marketing for the game was top notch, and finally, we got Sonic Mania in our hands. Blah, God, I messed it up. You might want to
Try it
like
again.
cut it
Yeah,
off.
you
Cut.
can do it. You can do it again if you want. That's not a problem.
Yeah, cut. All right.
Don't don't think so much.
All right. Sega even produced a comically absurd Mega Drive / Genesis commercial for the game as well. The marketing for the game was top notch, and finally, when we got Sonic Mania in our hands, it lived up to the hype. However, somewhere en route, the hype train started to get incredibly arrogant. Somehow, Sonic Mania evolved from another 16-bit entree to the Sonic Mania presents an alternate history where Sega never struggled with the transition to 3D and instead created the greatest Sega Saturn game of 1996. This quite frankly absurd notion was pushed forward by numerous outlets in the mainstream press and was even adopted by the indie developers and even Sonic Team themselves. Before moving, I just want to double down and reaffirm that Sonic Mania is a great game. Without any technical evaluation taking its art direction at face value, one can't help but feel how great this game would be running on the 16-bit Mega Drive / Genesis. However, my nostalgia goggles crack when you force upgrade it to 32-bit Sega Saturn.
Exactly. There is no place in time for Sonic Mania to be a critical and commercial success other than this very decade. Simply imagine if Sonic Mania was released as is on the Mega Drive. I do not think it would have gotten negative reviews, but it wouldn't have been hailed as the worthy entry either. I can list several critically flagship franchises, critically acclaimed flagship franchises that simply became irrelevant, such as this game I used to play on PlayStation called Siphon Filter. Siphon Filter 3 was one of my favorite games, but in the press, the ratings just, it went down. I played the game to death, but here's a quote from GameSpot's review. Siphon Filter 3 looks, plays, and feels more like an expansion pack for the previous games than a true sequel. Now I realize Siphon Filter isn't a good example for Sega nerds, so let me think of something a little bit more relevant. Crazy Taxi 3. Here's a GameSpot quote from the review. If you've played the Crazy Taxi games before and you aren't a big fan, you may want to consider renting Crazy Taxi 3 first. Crazy Taxi 3 is a Taxi 3 is, damn, I'm totally messing this up. Crazy Taxi 3 is to Crazy Taxi what Sonic Mania is to Sonic. And just remember that Crazy Taxi 3 killed the Crazy Taxi franchise, even though it had a remake of Crazy Taxi 1 and 2 in it, as well as a whole new city. I can give dozens, like seriously, I can give dozens of examples, but instead I will just point to where the hell would I point? Okay, but instead, I will just point to the company that created the 16-bit heavyweight champion Neo Geo, responsible for franchises such as Fatal Fury, Metal Slug, and King of Fighters. Many like arcade classics. Neo Geo is still running strong today, like with indie games and such. But SNK filed for bankruptcy in 2001. The company survived and everything, and their games are actually published through Sega-owned Atlas now. But nobody really seems to care about them because how far stuck in the past they are.
Mm-hmm. Now let's broaden the scope and look at the industry as a whole. The Saturn needs a franchise that can go up against console mascots Crash Bandicoot of Sony's PlayStation and Super Mario of Nintendo, as well as Sonic Team's own Nights into Dreams, which was released in 1996 and, unlike the other two platformers, which were setting the standard for three-dimensional gameplay in unique ways, boasted tried and tested gameplay on a two-dimensional axis rendered in 3D polygons. The presence of Knights as a flagship IP demonstrates that the industry was open to 2D gameplay. It just needed to be paired with 3D polygons.
Widening the scope beyond hardware manufacturers, Sonic Mania would even have to fight for relevance against third-party platformers such as Donkey Kong and Spyro the Dragon. The 3D revolution was so phenomenal at the time that even Namco upgraded their mascot to 3D with Pac-Man World. Man, like on a side note, I loved Pac-Man World, and like I wish I could have played it on the Dreamcast, but I digress. Now it's not to say that good old fashioned sprite based 2D platformers didn't top sales charts in the mid 90s. Another one of my favorites was and it's a licensed game, Disney's Hercules. I love that game. It was 2D side scrolling platforming, but place a game like Hercules side by side with Sonic Mania in the mid 90s, I would pick Hercules up in a heartbeat. It had like a ton of voice acting. At that time, it was like really fun to just hear the actor from the movie just say his lines in game, and it was also using depth of field, and it was just fun. And Sonic Mania, like right now, like after like almost 25-30 years, it seems like a really big deal to go back to the Green Hill Zone. But anytime sooner, and it would be like, how can we miss you if you don't go away, kind of thing. What do you think?
Well, I knew that the Lion King as a video game existed for the Super Nintendo, but Hercules, I didn't know about it, like, at all.
Well,
I mean, I
just
know
talk about
what?
just talk about the Lion King. Lion King had like voice acting and stuff, but Lion King was like really, it was like really early, and it was actually on 16-bit, so it was like on par with Sonic in terms of gameplay and graphics. Hercules was just like Lion King. I think it was made by the same developers. I could be wrong about that, but it just added 32-bit power. So there were just things like he could run up and down the field, even though it was like you do in Sonic Rush when he gets like shot back through like something, and you're running in the background.
Mm-hmm.
So it did those kind of things, and it just seemed like really cool at the time.
Yes. And I knew that Sonic was like, oh Jesus, I'm like losing it right now. I mean, I knew Sonic existed, but I didn't really like know about the franchise much until Sonic Adventure 2 came out for the GameCube anyway. And the first time I played Sonic Adventure 2, it was in like Circuit City in the spring of 2002. I was playing against a blonde kid who was like might have been 12 or 13 at the time. He played as Shadow, I played as Amy Rose, and I lost, like, big time.
That's what you took Amy, so...
Yeah, it wasn't until I started reading magazines like Nintendo Power, Game Pro, even Electronic Gaming Monthly that I started to learn about Sonic's history. Like his rivalry with Mario, the fact that he was like cooler than Mario, etc., etc.
Yep.
And it wasn't until I dated a guy 5 years my senior, huge Sonic fan, that he gave me the Sega Genesis, and playing, like, running through Green Hill Zone, Chemical Plant, Marble Zone, and I was like, holy shit! The early Sonic games were twice as challenging as the modern Sonic games. That's not to say that I'm not gonna push modern Sonic aside. I mean, I love modern Sonic. That's who I grew up with.
You know, there's this show on YouTube, like kids play or kids watch or whatever, and they give them things from the 90s to do, and they actually did.
Kids react to...
Yeah, kids react to, yeah, exactly. So they gave them Sonic the Hedgehog 1, and like they had like a good spectrum from, like, you know, 6-7-year-olds to 10, 12, and 15, 16, and they all struggled with just finishing the Green Hill Zone. I think only 1 or 2 were actually able to get to the Marble Zone.
Did each
That's
kid
all.
finish Green Hill Zone at like different times? Because, you know, one kid might get through the level faster than the other.
Yep. And that's actually something that I will be covering in the 4th article, is like play testing and getting the games right. So that's something that Sonic 4 did that Sonic Mania has simply not done. I read an interview with Takashi Iizuka while he was discussing Sonic Forces, and he said that Sonic Mania has not been play tested. So they're skipping that whole part of, you know, because, yeah, you know, a lot of this involves business. It's not art, it's a business, and you need to get games into the maximum amount of hands, and kids will just throw it aside if it's too hard. But we digress. So let's go off air.